The abandoned hospital building is one experience I would have never have expected to have ever experienced, even as a paranormal investigator. I, at this time in 2008, was working for a security company as an armed security officer. This particular building had to be boarded up due to a fire. The security company had the task of guarding it until it could get properly sealed and cleaned up. I was not assigned to this post at this building, but 3 fellow officers that I knew well were. The structure was said to have housed mental patients in its earlier days. In the latter years, the building became more of a home for the aging. Security did regular sweeps of the entire building to make sure it was clear of trespassers. During those sweeps, it was said that there were some very odd occurrences. One of the officers stated that he and another 2 officers were in the basement level of the building, the last level of their sweep. They were standing in one spot when they said out of nowhere this large glass jar dropped, which seemed out of thin air, and landed in between the 3 of them. No one but them were in the basement, or the entire building for that matter. Later that evening, during an officer's area check on the main level floor, a 9-volt battery thumped against the wall in an adjacent room, from a different room with a shelf that had 3 9-volt batteries on it prior to the incident. The officer then went to the room to check the shelf where the batteries were. There was only one that remained on that shelf. I knew all 3 security officers that experienced these instances well, since I did work with the same company. All 3 of the officers knew I was a paranormal investigator. The officers told me about all the occurrences that were going on within the old hospital. I decided to ask them if I could get in and look at the place. They agreed and allowed me to do so. Unfortunately, I was limited on the amount of equipment I could bring into the building because technically I was not assigned there to work and wasn't authorized to bring in such equipment. I did, however, bring in a K2 EMF meter, a digital voice recorder, and a small digital camera. I thought I would go in there and find logical reasons for the incidences that were taking place. That ended up not being the case. The first incident that took place when I got there was when 2 officers, a female, and I were on the main floor of the building. We were all looking around on the floor at the various objects and where they were laying. All of us then went around the corner into a small room that housed the stairway to the basement. We were no more than 10 feet from where we were prior when there was a loud thud on the floor, and then a few more hard-sounding bounces on the hallway floor. Then entering the hallway to investigate the noise, it was noticed that a padlock had moved approximately 6 feet from its previous resting place. The noise of the padlock hitting the floor sounded as though it was thrown to the floor, thrown hard enough to bounce it off the floor. Here is an audio clip from that incident. This is the basement?
Yeah.
Who are you talking to me? That's... See?
It was like right there.
What was that?
It's that lock.
That lock was thrown.
That lock was right there.
Yeah.
We eventually made it back to the stairwell and into the basement of the building. As we were walking around the basement, I said, "Why don't you throw something?" In the small room directly across from me, something thudded against the wall very hard. The thump was so loud it caused me to physically flinch. I then went directly into the room from where the sound came from. No one was in there. There was a fixed type of window in there, but it was not broken and was intact. I could not come up with an explanation. I left the digital voice recorder recording on a shelf on the far end of the basement hallway while we went upstairs. Leaving the recorder on the shelf while we were upstairs would have picked up anyone entering the basement other than us. It served a good purpose for that reason. While we were upstairs, things started to get more and more odd. At one point, an officer and I were standing outside of the doorway in the hallway. The 2 others were using the K2 EMF meter to do a check in the room. The electricity was shut off to the building. While doing the K2 sweeps, the meter spiked up to red. It was very close to that exact time that a metal object went whizzing by the officer and I in the hallway and struck the wall on the very far end. The object struck the very same end that this picture shows. We all went to the area where the object seemed to have been thrown. The area was clear. We then went to the end where the object struck. It is on that end we found a small piece of metal that was a piece of a plumbing attachment. It is that piece we believed was the object that struck the wall. While investigating the end within the standing area this picture was taken, myself and the female in the group saw another object down on the A end of the hallway get tossed. The object that got tossed on the other end came from the left side and flew to the right. We then traveled down to the other end marked with the A. Again, the end was clear. We identified the piece that was tossed on that end as yet another piece of plumbing attachment. We also noted a metal doorknob pin on that end that also proved to be a valuable bit of information to us later yet in the evening. The event that ties into the doorknob pin is an interesting one. This event was when all of us were standing on this end of the hallway in the standing area in which this picture was taken. 2 security officers were standing in this small hallway end room on the side marked with a C. They were facing the side marked with a B. The female of the group was standing on the side marked with a B. She was facing the officers standing on side C. I was facing the exact direction from the area in which this picture was taken. Standing on side B, she began to rub the right side of her face and stated she felt a little paranoid. She then began to move to the side the officers were standing on. In a matter of seconds of her moving away from that area, a metal piece flew and hit the wall where she was moments prior. The object hit with a great amount of force. Keep in mind that also the object would have had to have been thrown from the point marked D on the picture to have struck the area it did strike. We would have seen an individual there in that spot. No one was there, no one that could be seen by the human eye anyway. There is also another interesting part of the audio prior to the metal object launching against the wall where she stood a short time prior. On the audio you can hear what appears to be a kind of crackling, tinging metal type of sound, almost like it was encased in electricity. A short time later it is launched into the wall. That metal sound was not heard by anyone standing there. This object projectile ended up being the doorknob pin that was located on the far opposite end of the hallway. Here is the audio clip.
Okay, I'm gonna get a little paranoid here.
Carter.
That's the word fly. Oh, no.
Dude, that alley wrench was over there.
It was over there.
Yes, it was.
Yet another incident occurred that really caught me off guard yet again. I was shining my flashlight down the hallway. As I was doing so, a rock seemed to appear out of thin air no more than 10 feet from me. The rock appeared and flew through the air as if it were thrown. It wasn't there, then it was. We all decided to go down to the basement again and pick up the voice recorder that I left on the shelf. I picked up the voice recorder off the shelf. We started to head back down the basement hallway. One officer was walking alongside of me and the others were walking ahead of me. As I was carrying the voice recorder, I said, "Can you throw something for us down here?" It was then a long piece of wood struck me square in the back. I was stunned, as you will hear on this next clip. You also hear the guard mention before it happens that a particular device he is carrying seems to be losing battery power. Can you throw something for us? Down here?
My battery's fading empty.
Something hit me. That hit me in the back. That hit me square in the back, dude.
You're joking.
I'm not shitting you. It hit me right here. Wrapping up this investigation report is a few more of the EVP we did catch from the old abandoned hospital. The language is kind of harsh on a couple of them, and it is clear on what the voice is saying, so keep that in mind. Here are those clips.
I did get a bit of a green light up here though.
Okay.
Now he's a better man for it.
Yes, a bigger man. Fuck, I didn't want to sweat my ass off in this uniform.
Or kick you out of your place.